charge him $1,000.
You take the same dose?
No, the thing was,
I like the name.
It is.
The Rabbi asked me to say a few words between Mincha and Mariv. It's all right.
I take some.
It's okay. No. I'm sorry. That's okay. No, other Rabbi. I'm sorry. But what?
Pharmacology.
I don't know.
Okay.
I majored in psychology. I didn't major in
Pharmacology. You know, regular pharmacology.
I know, it was pharmacy. Talk to a pharmacist. I don't know.
I majored in alcohol.
We're entering now to Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, but people don't know the Erev Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. It was a shtickle like the 20th century Tzom Gedalia. People don't know what happened. Erev Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, about 90 years ago, there was a Yid, there was Baal Tshuva, Choshev Yid, the Talmud of Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. He was walking home from Mincha. Daven the early Mincha, it was Erev Shabbos that year. In Yerushalayim, Yer Kodesh, in Minyan, in the hospital, Yartzeit, nearby there. He's walking out of Minyan, and someone asked him what time it was. He looked at his watch, and he was assassinated. It was Professor Yaakov Yisrael Haan, Hashem Yimkom Domoy, killed 90 years ago, about 91 years ago, Erev Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. And the kesher that this horrible event that so many Jewish historians pass over, how such a thing could happen, that a Yid could be shot
Where?
in Jerusalem 90 years ago by another person who, both parents were Jewish, the one who killed him, he was born Jewish. How such a thing could happen in Klal Yisrael, not heard of since Gedalia ben Achikam, in a very similar situation, very similar circumstances, very similar motive. But it comes down, whatever your politics are, it comes down to the same mistake that Korach made. Such a thing. Reb Moshe brings in Darash Moshe, Reb Moshe Feinstein brings, Schus Yagen Leinu, that Korach, he said, Kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim, b'soichem Hashem, and he brought out, it says, Medrash says, he went to Moshe Rabbeinu, he asked, I have a talash kulei techelis. Do I need another chut techelis, tzitzis, to pater it? And Moshe Rabbeinu said, yes. I said, that's ridiculous. I have already the talash kulei techelis. I have a bayis molei svarim. A whole house is full of Sifrei Torah. Do I need another piece of parchment, of mezuzah? I have it already. How many times the same thing is there, just like the same tchelis is there, the same Parshas in the Sefer Torah. Why do I need to put a little Parsha on the... Moshe Rabbeinu said, you still have to do it. He said that was the Indian of Nasa v'Nishma. If the Klal Yisrael, why isn't it enough just say Nasa? What do we need the Nishma for? We should just do whatever Hashem says. No, because Nishma means we have to follow Gedol Yisrael, we have to follow Jewish leaders, Torah leaders, not just people who call themselves leaders with no Torah behind them. Torah leaders, that's what we have to follow, like a Moshe Rabbeinu. And even Korach was a big Talmud Chacham and Erlich Yid, but he made a fundamental mistake. Reb Tzadok brings in Pri Tzadok, Tzadok HaKohen from Lublin, he brings that fundamentally the mistake that Korach made was, in a way, it sounds strange. He's fighting against Moshe Rabbeinu, but essentially it was Keilu, he was saying Moshe Rabbeinu was Mashiach. We're already by the Mashiach Zeiten. What do we need all this for? We don't need to have all these divisions. That seemed to be the argument he was making. Everybody's equal. Everybody's holy. Why do we should have a classless society? We don't need what? You're Moshe Rabbeinu, you're the king, you make your brother a Kohen Gadol, and you leave nothing for everybody else. Now, Korach was a Choshev Yid. He was from Nosei Aaron. He was carrying the ark in the desert. It was no small shake. But still, he riled up people. But essentially he was saying, Tzadok uses Kabbalistic terminology, saying that Korach was speaking of an Or Makif, and Moshe Rabbeinu was talking of an Or Yosher, an Or Panimi. What it means is that Korach, in a simple way, which we can't go too deep into the Nyanim, but in a simple way, Korach was saying, oh, everything's perfect already. We have a bias molis for him. We don't need all these things. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, you got to take everything in the right time. Take everything step by step. You can't just do whatever you want. In the Haftarah, the people come to Shmuel Navi and they say, we want a melech. Now the Torah tells the mitzvah, Som Tosem Melech Melech. We should have a melech. We should have a king. So what was so bad? Why is Shmuel Navi saying horrible things? He said, Vayomeru. He says, Vayikru Shmuel Hashem. Oh wait, Haloi Ktsir Chitim Hayom. He said to the people, Shmuel Navi, he said, it's the wheat harvest time now, meaning it's summertime. In Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't rain after Pesach in Eretz Yisrael. So he says, Hayom Ekrel Hashem Yitin Koilos Amater. Should I call to Hashem today and it should start raining and thundering? It's not the right time. You see how horrible a thing it is, what an evil thing is to ask for a king? And Itaki called and everyone was scared, it says, that they had rain and thunder in the wrong time. That was his point. There's a good time for everything, but there's also a wrong time. And how do we know when there's the right time and the wrong time? We have to follow Gedol Yisrael. We can't just take things into our own hands. And I think that's essentially why it's such a precious dogma of our faith to believe in Bias Mashiach, because essentially it means it keeps us cool-headed. We don't become extreme. We don't become crazy. We don't go start doing things that are totally out of the mind. One Yid to kill another Yid because he thinks that such a thing. He thinks that he's in control of everything. He's going to do such a thing to assassinate, to murder in cold blood a Yid who's coming out of davening defenseless, unarmed, for political reasons, like what happened 90 years ago today. That it comes from that same ideology of Korach to say, no, we know better. We don't need to listen to Gedolim. What was the Haan doing? He was trying to make peace, trying to spread love between and make peace between all different religions. Can you imagine how many lives would have been saved? How much horror that happened after that? How much could have been prevented if that was the derech Klal Yisrael would have taken, following the Gedolim, following like Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld was trying to instill into the people. But instead, a young guy came. He had orders. Some say it was from someone who had a big name later on, and even then, and to do such a horrible thing, because when you take godliness out of the equation, it becomes a twisted form. We see so often in the world and in history. I remember I used to speak often in a college a course on world history. The professor would ask me to come speak. The professor always said, the religion is not the reason for all this fighting. People take politics and use religion as an excuse. And we see that now constantly. It's not about the religions. The religions, all right, we have our disagreements. But it doesn't mean we're going to go knock each other's heads off. We're going to go crazy. All right, we're waiting for Mashiach. Hashem will take care of things. When Mashiach comes, we'll find out who's right. In the meantime, we got to live peacefully, be good neighbors to one another. We know we're right, but we don't have to go and drive everybody else crazy. We don't have to go and be violent and crazy and all kinds of crazy things. We have a dogma. Mashiach is coming. Hashem's going to take care of everything. We don't need to go and hurt other people like that. And befrat such a thing that such a thing like this could happen. And befrat that it's been covered up, that there's been such a historical revisionism, that how many Jews who go and study and learn about Jewish history never even heard this story. That such a horrible thing could happen, and the repercussions of what happened. And by the Levaya, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he said this was an example of the Bnei Yaakov coming and taking the clay Esav, the Cherev Shel Esav, that the Jewish people, the children of Jacob, should take the sword of Esau and act in an Esav Dikaveg, that's not for a Yid to act. That's not a Yiddish way. To silence the Kol Yaakov. And that's taka what we have to remember. That there's a time and a place for everything. What does it say? Moshe v'Aharon kahana v'shmo b'korei shmo. We have Gedolim, Talmidei Chachamim, who teach us when's the right time, when's the wrong time. We can't just go take things into our own hands and to break into these factions and factionalize in a violent way. If we have different, it's Baruch Hashem, there's a beautiful diversity in Klal Yisrael. It's a lovely, beautiful thing to have diversity, to have all different types of Jews, as long as we're unified under the banner of Torah. And even the whole world, there's all different things, but as long as we recognize that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the Iker, that God is who created us and God is who in control. You know, by taking a steady and level-headed way, like we have here, Choshev Askin, who takes how Rabbi Greenwald goes, with a steady, level-headed way, not to be extreme one way, not to be extreme the other way, to make peace and spread love and peace. The whole Torah is Noyam and Shalom. That's the derech that the Torah wants us to go. Not to be fighting. We can disagree. Fine, it's beautiful. There's a Melchemta Shel Torah which is sacred, which is holy. That we open every piece, every blot of Gemara, and there can be dissent and discussion and looking in different ways. That's fine and that's beautiful as long as it's in a peaceful and loving way that we love each other. You know, Lemaisa, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he was very friendly with another rabbi who he disagreed with very much. And they loved each other even though they disagreed. But even that rabbi, he once said, you know, we have such a thing, this was earlier in his life, before he got more controversial. He said that you know, we see that at one point in our history, the Gemara says, we used to say the 10 Commandments every day, the Seres HaDibros would say every day. And then there was one there was a cult, there was a sect that said the only thing that Hashem gave us was the 10 Commandments and everything else Moshe Rabbeinu made up. So because of that, Chazal said, all right, we can't put so much focus on the 10 Commandments because of that. And so we had to take it out of the Siddur. That same rabbi who was always said by people who claim to be his followers to be teaching a certain way, don't have to say who it is, he said the same thing, that if there was a group that mutilated and twisted a certain mitzvah, the Kotzker said any mitzvah could be turned into Avodah Zarah. If you take Hashem out of the equation and just turn in the Avodah Zarah, that mitzvah, he said maybe we should lessen our focus on that, even if it's a great mitzvah according to different Marnei mitzvahs. Not everyone agrees, but whatever it is, this particular rabbi, who was very famous by people who claim the other way of what he's saying, actually said, no, maybe we shouldn't put so much of an emphasis on that, because it's not the right time, and we can't be drawn away into the wrong way. All right, well, unfortunately, whatever, he had problems, whatever, he himself admitted so. But instead, we should take that message, like how Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld had. Rabbi Fishbein always tells a story. I think it was Churchill who was there in Eretz Yisrael at the time. He said he visited Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, and he said, "How can you live in such a simple little hovel?" He said, "How could it be?" He saw the Harabayas. He said, "If Hashem's house is not built, how can I build a beautiful mansion? If Hashem's house is in ruins, I'm also going to wait patiently and live humbly and try to make peace with the whole world and just wait patiently and not to do things the wrong way." Ma'aseh Medrash says that that's the horror of what Korach did. Even though maybe you could argue it meant l'shem shamayim, and he had all kinds of lofty ideals, but it wasn't time and it wasn't right. The Medrash says that the Bezdin Shalmala In heaven, they only start punishing a person when he's 20. The President Shalmata, human beings can only start judging a person when he's 13. But this, with Machlokes of Korach v'chol Adasai, made a Nashim b'tav, to be lost and swallowed up. Same thing after that in history. Nashim b'tav, how many Yiddish, holy Jewish neshamas were destroyed? Perhaps not in any small way because of that event. The thing is if we take that message to heart and remember that Kol Yaakov, we don't need a Yadayim Yadei Esav. We need that Kol Yaakov, like Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said, a call of davening, a call of learning, even a call of shtadlonis and askonis, but in a peaceful and loving and caring and normal and balanced way. In that way, we could be zoiche to see. Now we're coming into Tammuz, which includes, if Mashiach's not here yet in the 3 weeks, but when he comes, it'll be turned into Yemei Sasan V'Simcha. But even without that, we can recognize there's a story that Reb Lezer Nissen of Drobich, he heard his father, the holy Yismach Moshe of Il, he was crying when he learned the Gemara. It says, Kol Dor Shaloi Nivda Beis HaMikdash B'Yamav Kilu Nechrav B'Yamav. That any generation when the temple wasn't rebuilt, it's as if it was destroyed in that generation. What a condemnation of our generation that we're not zeicha to that. And Reb Lezer Nissen said, "Wait a second, Tata, you taught me also that the Chorban Beis HaMikdash was a kapara for Klal Yisrael. So we shouldn't have to be destroyed in our bodies. Hashem took out on Eitzim Bavanim, on the wood and the stones were punished, not human beings. So too, if that's the case, and we feel the loss of the Beis HaMikdash, then in the same way, Ki'il Nechrav B'Yamav means that as if it was destroyed in our generation, it means that we have that same kapara, we can reach back and experience that same kapara of the Chorban Beis HaMikdash and the schus of our avelis, and we should then be zoiche kol ha-misabel al-Yerushalayim zoiche v'rei b'simchosa. From here remain amen.
Right.